Morning came slow, grey light spilling over streets still damp from night. Frank, the balloon peddler, shuffled to his corner with tired steps, his bundle of strings like veins tugging at his hands. He remembered a man who once stood there, restless, eyes darting, asking for a balloon though no child was with him. The man's wrist had slipped from his sleeve as he paid, and on the pale skin was a letter cut into ink, W. Frank had carried the memory like a stone in his pocket, heavy and unspoken. Today it pressed too hard to ignore. In the basement of a gambling hall, Black listened as Frank told the story, his voice rough, uncertain, but steady at the end. Black's men leaned in, understanding that a single mark could draw a map sharper than any police file. Meanwhile, Mills and Amelia traced leads of their own, unaware that the underworld now chased the same shadow. The balloons in Frank's hands trembled in the wind, straining upward, as though desperate to escape. The city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the threads above and below to knot together. The tenement loomed grey against the morning, its windows dull as blind eyes. Mills and Amelia climbed the narrow stairs, each step creaking like an old secret. Evelyn, the landlady, cracked open the door and muttered that Harry kept out of hours, his room thick with smoke and whispers. Inside, the air was stale, curtains drawn so tightly that the light bled in only as a faint bruise. On the desk lay a half-empty pack of cigarettes and a red pencil sharpened down to its nub. Amelia bent close, her notebook trembling in her hand, the connection too sharp to ignore. Mills stood by the window, his reflection faint in the glass, wondering if they were staring into the layer of absence itself. From the hall came faint footsteps, heavy, deliberate, not belonging to Evelyn. Outside, gangsters slipped into the stairwell, moving like shadows that had learned to breathe. Amelia whispered that the room felt like a photograph left too long in the sun, details fading, but truth still etched within. The air thickened as silence pressed in, and every sound promised the next door would open. The abandoned distillery groaned in the wind, its windows shattered like broken teeth. Harry was dragged inside, his wrists bound, his face pale and damp with sweat. Dozens of eyes glared down at him, the criminals forming a jury of smoke and silence. Harry's voice cracked as he tried to explain the voice in his head, a whisper that pushed him toward children like a hand on his back. He said he could not fight it, that he was hollowed out by an impulse that ruled him more than any law. The mob stirred, some spitting, others nodding with a strange pity, all caught between rage and disbelief. Black stood tall at the center, his words cutting the air. Was it justice to end Harry now, or cowardice to leave him to the state? One man shouted that mercy was weakness, another argued the police would only free him again. The debate swelled like storm water against rusted walls, but still no verdict came. Harry sobbed into the floorboards, his body trembling like a frayed rope on the verge of snapping. And in that moment, the question of life or death hung heavier than the distillery roof itself. The debate still raged when the doors burst open, Mills and Amelia stepping into the stale air of the distillery. The mob froze, caught between anger and relief, as the detectives cut through the shadows to reach Harry. He was curled on the floor, trembling, his voice spilling broken words about the thing inside him he could never silence. Amelia's notebook shook in her hands as she wrote every line of fragile thread tying the man to his crimes. Mills pulled him to his feet, his grip steady, though his eyes showed the weight of everything unsolved. Black watched without a word, his gloves resting on the table like verdicts never spoken. The gang melted back into the dark, leaving only the law to finish what hunger for vengeance could not. As dawn cracked through the shattered windows, Harry was led away, his sobs fading into the echo of steel doors waiting. Amelia closed her notebook at last, as if shutting a photograph too painful to leave in view. Mills lit a cigarette, the smoke curling upward like a prayer with no answer. Justice was done, yet the city knew the voice that drove Harry still lingered in the silence.